everything is meaningless. The basic human need is the drive for meaning. People who have no reason in their minds, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? So that question has not been answered in the lives of so many people.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Riaz Ansary, for your presentation on this topic which has perplexed man for centuries. Now we have the open question answer session in which you are welcome to ask questions on the topic to Brother Riaz Ansary. May I request our brothers to line up at the mic in front next to the stage and the one in the rear, and the sisters can line up behind the mic in the sisters section. Your questions, brothers and sisters, must be on the topic. It should be brief, and only one question at a time may be asked. Non-Muslims would be given preference over Muslims to put forward their questions. May we have the first question from the mic on my left here.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Muzammil Sheikh and I'm a business management student. So what is your idea about kun fayakun, be and it is, related to a Big Bang theory?
I don't have any problem with it. I see them completely compatible. Allah said be and it was. Do you see a problem with it?
So what is your viewpoints about this Big Bang theory and kun fayakun?
That which doesn't exist cannot create itself. So that which came into being from nothingness, which is basically what they're saying about the universe, okay? A point of zero volume, it doesn't exist. So it came into being from nothingness, and that can't happen without an effective cause. And that effective cause has to be independent, okay? And that effective cause has to have ability and power, and clearly intelligence, because when you look at, there's a theory called the anthropic principle. When they checked all of the values of the, they've identified now 4 physical fundamental forces in nature, which is gravity, and the electromagnetic force, which is, that like electrons, they're attracted by protons. Things of opposite charge attract each other, things of like charge repel each other. That's the electromagnetic force. So gravitation is the only one of these forces that operates beyond the atomic level. And then you have the electromagnetic force, and then you have the strong nuclear force and the weak nuclear force. And the electromagnetic principle would indicate that when you have more than one proton in a nucleus, they should push each other apart. There shouldn't be atoms of more than one proton, yet there are. We know that there's 92 natural elements and others which human beings have been able to make on the earth, although they probably exist in places like the sun, etc. Anyway, so there's this force that, if there is powerful gravitational force to overcome that repulsion, the electromagnetic force, at a certain point, if those 2 protons get close enough together, the strong force will glue them, and it overrides that force. And then there's this weak nuclear force. So these 4 forces, when you check the values, the relative strength of those forces, if there was just the tiniest shift in the balance between these forces, you would not have a universe with stars, you would not have a universe with molecules, you would not have a universe with life. So, and they say that, if the rate of expansion of the Big Bang had been, just one infinitesimal, in the early seconds, or, 1/1,000,000th of a second, if it had been a little bit faster or a little bit slower, it would have either imploded on itself again or something, nothing would have formed. All of these values are incredibly precisely tuned, as if on purpose, to bring in to being a universe like the one we see, in which there are creatures who are living and who have the ability to think and to decode the signs around them. All of that, doesn't that indicate intelligence on the part of that force that created it? So, you know, this whole universe could not come into being without a creator, and that creator is immensely powerful and immensely wise and immensely skilled. And so, and we as Muslims would say, yes, you know, it came about by him saying be, and it was.
Jazakallah.
Yes, brother.
Assalamu alaikum. Myself Qazi Mujtaba, an engineering student, and my question is, there is a thermodynamic law which states energy can neither be created nor be destroyed. It just converts from one form to another. And we believe in kun fayakun. So can you please explain?
Well, I mean, I'm a layman in this field, so I don't have anything more to add to your statement. As I said earlier, we do believe that Allah has the power to create out of nothingness, and that He has the power to override the laws that He created in nature.
Jazakallah.
Can we have the next question from the sister?
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Samira and I'm a student. My question is, if Allah has created man in the best of molds and He only says that, then He reduces Himself to the lowest of the low. What is the flaw of mankind?
What is this law?
What is the flaw of mankind?
The flaw. Well, in Surah Al-Alaq, Allah says, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لِيَطْغَى أَرَّآهُ اسْتَغْنَى. The human being exceeds the limits because he sees himself, he considers himself to be independent. So it is the Quranic, you know, this is we did a show in the studio talking about the importance of Arabic language for Muslims. When you look at the term kufr, I mean, this is one of the key terms in the Quranic discourse. And what is the nature of kufr? I mean, linguistically, I mean, when it's translated as disbelief, you lose all the richness of the Arabic meanings. You know, the verb comes from a term kafara, which means to cover up anything. So a farmer is called a kafir linguistically because he covers the seeds. After sowing the seeds, he covers them again with earth. And the other very, very fundamental aspect, one of the facets of the meanings of kafara means to be ungrateful. So a person who looks at himself and sees the favors of his Lord upon him and then doesn't bother to ask himself, oh, you know, what's this all about? How did I come into being? What am I supposed to be doing? Why am I here? A person who doesn't ask that question is a kafir, he's an ingrate. So the core issue related to disbelief is ingratitude. And in Surah Al-Qiyamah, in the early part of the surah, he's describing the point of view of a person who is challenging the idea that he would ever be resurrected and brought before his Lord for judgment. بَلْ يُرِيدُ الْإِنسَانُ لِيَفْجُرَ أَمَامَهُ. In fact, the human being would like to continue doing corrupt behavior into the future. And to me, you know, the classic quote with regard to this of a philosopher is Bertrand Russell. He said, we must build our worldview on a firm foundation of despair. Why despair? Because of all these things I've been talking about. Because if you accept all of these proposals about reality that I've been describing with regard to these comprehensive secularism, if you accept all those proposals, then life is meaningless. And so it is a cause for despair. Okay, but the consolation is that you get to do whatever you want. And I mean, this man in particular, I mean, he's passed on now to whatever he sent ahead, as they say. I mean, so we don't really want to talk badly about the dead, but I mean, he's a case example. I mean, he had a wife who loved him to death. I mean, she practically worshipped him. And, you know, he hurt her all the time, you know, because he was just a philanderer. He had affairs left and right. So he built his philosophy on a firm foundation of despair. And then to seek comfort, well, you know, there's nothing after this life, so get it while you can. I mean, all of these contribute to turning a person, you know, reducing a person from that, that pure nature that Allah created us upon and bringing him down to the lowest of the low. Allahu A'lam.
Yes, brother.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ludovic Bonia. I agree with you when you say that if there is a beginning of the universe, theory of Big Bang, of what it is said in Quran, it must have a creator and a meaning of life. But I think too that we, mankind, we have we can feel guilt of something. We have the culpability, and I think that this in itself, it is something which shows us that we can have a meaning of our life. I mean, whatever what is right or wrong, because it depends of the culture. It could depend of the culture, but we can feel guilt when we think that we are wrong, and we can be attracted by a state of happiness when we think that we are right. And so what I see is that the extreme, the most opposite thing than the state of guilty is the state of being in peace with oneself. And so I just want to ask that if in Islam peace is just a duty, or if it's of peace, or if peace is a part of the meaning of the human life, even if there is the concept of the heaven and after in the hereafter. But peace, we are on a program about the peace solution. Peace is a solution for humanity, and so I would like to know if in Islam or if in your own point of view is that peace could be the meaning of the human life.
Well, with regard to your preamble, we would say that there is an innate capacity which we call fitra in Arabic, and human beings are born with a nature which inclines them towards good and a recognition of the Creator, and inclines them away from evil. So as you said, when a person does something that he knows to be wrong, he feels bad. And when he does something that he understands to be good, then it makes him happy. And a lot of those values are common to all of humanity, you know, which this led some philosophers, particularly when the Muslims came into contact with Indian philosophers, they said, we don't need a prophet. If the prophet came with something that tells us is good, and we already know it to be good, then what's the point? I mean, we already know it's good. And if he tells us something is bad, and we already know it's bad because of the way we feel about it inside, or we arrive at it by our intellect, then we don't need a prophet. And if he's telling us something is good, and our intellect says it's bad, and vice versa, then we accept our intellect. You know, what he's telling us must be wrong. So, I mean, my personal response to that would be that when I take off my glasses, I can see a lot of things, more or less, but the acuity, the clarity, to be able to make out your face, for instance, from this distance, I can't make it out. Okay? I need my glasses. So the message of the prophets is like glasses. Human beings have this innate sense of right and wrong, but it's not completely sharp and clear. You know, it may vary from one person to another. There needs to be an objective standard. And so that's what the prophets came with. They came to clarify the gray areas. And so we definitely need prophets. And the other issue with regard to, is peace a duty? On some level, I would say it's a reward, actually. Allah said about the state of the heart. You know, and this is just, again, you know, the amazing nature of the Arabic language. The word for heart in Arabic is qalb, and the verb means to turn over. And if you say, inqalabat as-sayyara, the car flipped over. Okay, so the nature of the heart is that it's always changing, it's always turning. And the ideal state, actually, is how do you get the heart into a state of serenity? And Allah mentioned that أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ. Verily, it is by the remembrance of Allah that hearts attain serenity. And so that serenity is a reward, actually, for being in that state, for establishing the link with your Creator, to be conscious of Him. And then beyond that, I mean, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Ufshu salam," spread peace. So that is actually an order. So, I mean, this was in the opening, you know, as one of the brothers said, he said, "Faqid ash-shay la yu'ti," the Arabic saying, one who doesn't have something cannot give it. So, I mean, we have to make an effort to achieve that state in ourselves, and if we do achieve it, it becomes its own reward. And then we also have that responsibility to try to share it with others.
Jazakallah.
Yes, brother.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Mahmood Sheikh. I am a student. My question to you is, how to prove an atheist the existence of God?
Well, this lecture was basically that. I mean, that's, you know, those are the issues. That their worldview is based on the idea that nature and the universe have always been here. And, you know, I've presented some of the evidence that I think we can use to challenge that viewpoint. And another thing that we should also be aware of with regard to these discussions is when an atheist tells a Muslim, "Prove to me that there is a God," just ask him, "Why are you asking me to prove to you?" Because I have a view about reality, and you have a view about reality. And both of our views are based on axioms. So my axioms are no less axiomatic than your axioms. Your view is based upon the concept that the universe has been eternal. If you don't accept that, then you have to accept my concept. So prove to me that the universe is eternal. Upon whom is the burden of proof? Before we ever enter into this discussion, we should agree. All discussions of this type, you have to agree, first of all, upon whom is the burden of proof? So if he wants to say the burden of proof is on you or on the Muslim can just as easily flip it around and say the burden of proof is on you. And the issue, you know, really is that this is not an idle question. You know, what is at stake here? You know, there's only a few ideas about what happens after you die. One is that it's the end, there's nothing. One is that Well, I don't really know what's going to happen, and I'll deal with it when I get there. One is that all roads lead to paradise. Everybody's going to heaven. Doesn't matter what you do, or what you believe. And then there's the view that you're going to be reincarnated in this world. And then there's a view that you're going to leave here for an eternity, which is either heaven or hell, and it's not going to stop. So those are 5 views. So before we get into any discussion about these issues, I mean, let's just look at what's at stake. What happens if somebody is wrong? Somebody holds one of these views and he happens to be wrong. Okay, if the atheist is correct and there's nothing afterwards, then he and the Muslim will be the same in the grave. I mean, the Muslim didn't lose anything. The atheist would say, yeah, well, you lost out on the chance for pleasure. But we would say, if you're seeking happiness in physical pleasure, it's like drinking salt water. You know, like Mick Jagger said, I can't get no satisfaction. I mean, he was following his physical desires, right? And he's a witness from that side upon themselves. I can't get no satisfaction. So if the atheist is right and we're wrong, after it's all over, I didn't lose anything from having my point of view. And if you say, I'll deal with it when I get there, that's like saying that somebody, he's jumped out of an airplane and he says, well, you know, if there is a ground, I'll pull the parachute cord when I get there. I'll deal with it when I get there. What's going to happen to him? He's going to turn into a blood spot on the ground. If all roads lead to paradise, well, the way of life I'm living is, I find it to be fulfilling, so I'm not losing anything. Reincarnation is a much more complicated issue. There's no proof, one way or another, for incarnation or against it, logically. I mean, it's logically conceivable. There's some issues about, like, you know, why do the number of human beings keep increasing? You know, the number of souls you'd think would be limited. There's some issues with reincarnation, but anyway, the bottom line is that if that point of view is correct, and I live as a Muslim, I mean, I'm living a life that I'm trying to do good. So even if I get it wrong, okay, my view of reality was wrong, well, there's always another chance, okay? But if our point of view is right, and there's only one chance to get it right, what are the consequences of being wrong? I mean, it's unimaginable. The human mind cannot comprehend it. That's why people think about it briefly and then they say, let's think about something else. Let's not talk about something morbid. So, I mean, if you get it wrong, you leave this life and you have not submitted to your Lord, I mean, it's hell forever. So, I mean, aside from any other arguments, I mean, those are the kind of things that we need to bring up before the discussion really gets going. Allah knows best.